who do I take this LOR from? I don't know, there's so many options or so less options. Or my company won't give me an LOR on a letterhead, what do I do? My company won't give me an LOR, what at all? Should I shoot someone or I don't know, my professor doesn't have an official email. We are gonna resolve all of your questions right now, so stay tuned. Okay, welcome to another video, guys. So a lot of you were asking me about questions and queries regarding LORs, recommendation letters, aka letter of recommendation, and you guys have a whole lot of queries about who you should take it from and what to do if the professor doesn't have an official email ID, how to go about it if you can't get the that, what do you call it, the letterhead on top of the document, or all these queries. We're also going to target some of the problems here. There's a total of 6 problems that we're going to target over here, and all of these problems I think a lot of you guys face, even what to include in the LOR, how you should actually ask your recommender to kind of frame your LOR, because it's really up to you. If you ask them to do it right, they will do it right. Ask them, or maybe give them a sheet of all of your requirements and all of the things that you have been through with them, and they will make a great LOR for you. But today, first of all, let's actually go through it step by step, answer these questions, all of these 6 questions, okay? So first question, all right? First question is, these questions, by the way, these questions are all given to me by you people, and I'm sure that you are facing these problems almost, everyone faces these problems. So I'm going to try to make sure that you have nothing to worry about in this after this video, okay? All right, so the first question is, who should I take a letter of recommendation from? Should it be a professor, should it be a research advisor, or should it be an employer? Now, that completely depends on your situation, that completely depends on your circumstance, what you are dealing with right now, what you have been doing. So let's take a case-based scenario. Let's take kind of break it down for everyone, no matter who it is. If you're working in the industry, this answer will be for you. If you are still in college, again, this answer will be for you. So let's kind of go about it case by case, okay? First case is, you have less than 2 years. Basically, you've been in college and it's been less than two years that you've passed out. So let's say this is 2018 right now. If you passed out in 2016, this is still valid for you, okay? However, if you passed out in 2015 and this is 2018 now, so it's been 3 years, this one is not for you, okay? Just give me 1 minute and then we'll get to your case as well, okay? So if it's been less than 2 years that you have been out of college, what you want to do is make sure that you have at least 2 academic LORs. Guys, this is not kind of a video that's just coming out of my own mind. I have done the research, I have checked it out, and that is the only reason why I have it all jotted down over here. I just want to give you guys the information. So make sure that you actually understand this. Write it down if you don't remember it. If your case is that you have been less than 2 years, it's been less than 2 years that you've been out of college, then you want at least 2 academic LORs, given that you are going for an MS course. An MS course is definitely not supposed to be a thesis-based course, not at all times, but they do look for research capabilities. They do look for people who can actually make sure that they can research, they know what they are doing, okay? So make sure that you take at least 2 academic LORs. Those are very important. Those are much more important than your industrial LORs in your case especially, okay? The third one can, again, for US universities, sometimes for Canadian universities you only need 2. For US universities, you need mostly 3 in most cases, and I would recommend that you go on with even 3 academic LORs if you can. If you have a great record, if you have done some great things with some of the great professors, you do need to do that. But in other cases, take one from your industry, boss or something. Let's get to that in a moment, who you should take it from, okay? So anyway, that is your case. However, if you have been in the industry for more than 2 years, and if you have been actually out of the college for more than 2 years, and let's say it's been like 3 years or more, in that case, that's completely fine. If you do not have a lot of academic LORs, you don't need to. Let's just make it 1 in this case, okay? 1 academic LOR. Apart from that, 2 industrial ones should work for you. Just because you have more than 3 years or 3 years of experience, it will be great, because your experience matters a whole lot more than your academics right now. Because academics, those were 3 years old, right? I mean, I'm sure you realize that even in the case of the TOEFL, they don't accept scores that are 2 years old or older than 2 years. So you want to make sure you keep yourself up to date. They want to know that you can still speak like you spoke 2 years back or 2 years ago, right? Even in the case of GRE, it's the same. 5 years and then that piece of your marks and whatever, it's not valid anymore. You've got to do it again. So that's the whole kind of a situation that we're facing over here. It's the same situation, so don't worry about it. You just got to do it again. If you have been in the industry for more than 3 years, well, it's highly recommended that you actually go on and take at least two if you can't get academic ones, great, but still, two industrial LORs will do wonders for you, because those are the people who know what you have been doing, what are your capabilities. You might be an entirely different person during your college years. Okay, so I hope we are clear on that. Sometimes they just mention, especially if you're going for a thesis-based course, it's mentioned on the portal where basically you're supposed to enter the information of the recommenders. It's mentioned that you guys need to have at least 2 academic LORs, because we don't really kind of consider the industrial LORs in the same regard or place them as highly as the academic ones. Well, if you're going for a thesis based course, you will know why, because research is only mostly carried out in the academia. But still, if you've been in something like IBM Watson, if you've been a part of Microsoft Research, something like that, definitely your LORs from those people will probably count more than the academia. All right, so make sure you understand your case. How to choose your recommender, who is the best recommender, and how to shortlist recommenders, because like I said, you might even have to shortlist between 5 to 10 recommenders, 5 to 10 people, or it might be the case that you might not have a lot of people who would be willing to vouch for you, but at the same time you want to make sure that the recommenders that you pick are the ones that will do you good. So let's talk about this. How you want to pick your recommenders is completely based on something different than I was good in class. All right, so if you were in someone else's, if you were in Professor A's class, Professor X's class, let's say, all right, and this Professor X kind of knows that he's taught you 3 subjects. He says that this kid was the best student in my class. He always used to answer questions in the class, and he would just be very, very willing to kind of elevate the level of the class. He's a great student, but you gotta ask yourself, how much does that account for? I mean, if you were a great student in his class, it's probably the case that you had better grades than everyone else, and that kind of shows on your transcripts, that kind of shows in your class rank. So I don't think it counts for much. I mean, you already sent in the transcripts to the university, and on top of that, you're again creating a redundancy. You're telling them that, yeah, this was the best student in my class. Especially avoid these kind of people. All right. If you have done some project, however, with him, let's say that the professor says that this person, he didn't really come to my class for a long time in between, probably 1-2 months he just skipped it. I think that's the reason that he got a little lower on the grades side of things, but he came up with such extremely great ideas, extremely great observations and research, that I was able to present it to the other people, and he was like an example in front of the other people in the class. Right, so really that accounts for much more. You produce some groundbreaking results, you produce something good, and even though you were not present in the class, you did something on the project you were working on with this new professor, and so he has a lot more to speak about your efficiency, your work ethic, your dedication, everything really. This professor can portray it in a much better way. All right, so I understand you might not have 2 or 3 such professors. Even I have like 1 such professor who I've worked with extensively, but it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a whole lot of other people that you might go to, you might have interacted with, not just in terms of class, but you might have done something else. Maybe you developed software for them, maybe you did something like that, maybe you contributed in some other way. So as long as there's that, maybe you were TA, even here, you were doing the same tasks that TAs do in other countries, or you were RA or something of that sort. That kind of counts for much more than anything else, or than really saying that this person was great in class. Trust me, the committee does not care about your grade in class. They will throw that letter of recommendation out there, right? Won't work. So you want to make sure that you're choosing the recommenders perfectly right, and then you're giving them, reminding them of each and everything, that yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened, this was my contribution A, B, C, D, E, so that he knows and he remembers everything, and he knows how to frame the letter of recommendation. It's going to be so much more easier for him and so much better for you. So that's really all my research on how. Alright, I think it's probably very long that we've been talking about the first question. Let's move on to the next one and kind of try to speed things up over here, because all of these are not very long questions. The second one is also given to me by one of you guys. You said, what if my company is not granting me an LOR? What if my older company or my current company does not grant me an LOR? Well, I always say, if you haven't watched my previous LOR video on how to get the best LOR, it's highly recommended that you do. I'll put the link in the description, or put it in the end of this video. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that the person who is giving you the LOR is actually ready. So you don't want to ask them if they can give you an LOR. You want to ask them, dude, can you actually give me a strong letter of recommendation? Can you write a strong letter of recommendation for me? Repeat after me. You want a strong recommendation letter, okay? So don't just go asking about that. So because when you ask someone that they can write you a strong one or not, that means that you are giving them a chance to say no, because they might say, okay, fine, I'll write your recommendation, but they might not be able to say yes to a strong recommendation letter. If they do say yes, however, then you know that you are in the safe zone. You will get the best LOR possible. Alright, so in that regard, if your company is not ready to grant you an LOR, do not force it upon them. Do not make this a forced show where you kind of go after them or something like that. It doesn't work. In fact, it can actually be very, very pernicious, very, very harmful for your application. Just think about it. You force them in and they give you a substandard LOR. What would you do about that? It might ruin your chances of getting into any of the universities you've applied in. We all know that how costly the application process is. So let's just not discuss this question anymore. There's just no other answer. Okay, let's move on to the next one, and that is, what if it is not possible for me to get a LOR on a letterhead? So what if your recommender says that the letterhead thing is just not possible? I'll probably upload it without the letterhead, but from my official email ID. As long as there's that, you are safe to go. You have no issues. Don't worry about. Okay, sorry guys, the video got cut off. My camera wasn't charged, and that kind of. Well, anyway, let's continue. We were talking about. Okay, so in the case where you do not have a letterhead, well, like I was saying, there's a whole lot of people that I've talked to from the academia, from the industry, that have told me that sometimes they don't even ask for the scanned copy. They just suggest that your recommender inputs a copy where it's not really scanned, and maybe he can just put in the text instead, and they just say that it doesn't matter, that he can just put in a PDF file, Word file as well, in which he hasn't even scanned it but just typed it out. So that's perfectly fine. In cases like these where the letterhead cannot be included, don't worry about it so much, as long as your recommender has an official email address. That is the only condition in this case. You can also use digital certificates and all that kind of thing, but doesn't matter, isn't needed. Okay, no one's checking it. Okay, next question that you guys have sent me is, well, it's not possible to use, or my recommender doesn't really have an official email ID. Well, if your recommender doesn't have an official email ID, well, that can be a huge problem, because that makes your application, or especially your letter of recommendation, much more prone to scrutinization. So you're gonna have to actually make sure that your recommender is always available. His email is something that he really checks out most of the times, because the chances are there that he will actually get an email from the university, from the people trying to scrutinize his recommendation, that basically he is who he really claims to be, and the email does really actually belong to the person who he claims to be. So that kind of a scrutinization kind of a thing, that is something that your recommendation letter will be very prone to. And in case he doesn't really have an official email ID, maybe you should talk about it, and maybe you should think about other alternatives in terms of other people who might be able to recommend you. So that's something you can do. But doesn't matter if there's no case in which you can get the email, if there's no way that you can actually have an official email ID, send it through, well, there's basically nothing you can do. Just make sure that your recommender is always ready. Just wanna tell you guys that you want to make your application as credible as possible, as believable, as true, as make sure that everything in there is true. Do not add false things on there just to make your application look better, because once the committee finds out that even one thing on the application papers is kind of concocted, well, they will start doubting every bit of your profile, which is not good. So do not lie on your application. Trust me, that is the worst thing you can do. Okay? Alright, next question that you guys have sent me is that, well, what should the LOR target? What should be the nature of the letter of recommendation? Should it be technical or behavioral? Well, it really depends. Let me give you 2 examples, alright, and you will understand with these examples. So, there's the first case. You have a research advisor. You have researched with him extensively, okay? He knows that you've done all kinds of technical stuff. Everything you've done with him is technical. You want to make sure that this letter of recommendation is technical. You want to make sure that you give him that sheet of paper with all of your, remind him of each and every instance that you took up. Maybe someone was not able to cope up with his part of the project, you took over, or maybe you helped people, something like that. Make sure that you remind the recommender that you did all of this, and you must have done all of this. Only then you can remind him, right? So those kinds of things, just give him a piece of paper and just remind him of all of these things. All of the projects probably he has done with you, I'm sure he must remember, but still, if he takes on a lot of people, a lot of students, you should definitely consider doing that. Okay, one more thing you can do is, in the second case, that is, if the nature of your work was something different. Let's say that you were working with a professor from the EC department, and now you want to work in the CS department, or maybe you were working an internship which was in the kind of a business field, and now you're applying for a technical course. Well, then you want to look up transferable skills. Transferable skills, remember this word, Google it, find out more about it, and actually kind of make sure that your application highlights, make sure that your recommender highlights those transferable skills, because those are very important to highlight on these applications. Sometimes, because transferable skills are kind of the skills which you can actually use in whichever field there is. Let's say that you are diligent, you are punctual, you pay attention to everything, you have attention to detail. Well, that kind of a thing is required in almost every place. And trust me, you might think these are soft skills, but I don't think I will ever work with anyone who doesn't have that kind of a punctual kind of a scheme or something like that. So all these things kind of do stand out, even in case of your technical fields, that you had your analysis done right. Almost every job you do requires analysis. Even if you are in HR, you kind of analyze the people, you had a whole pipeline, whole process, all of that can be described. Doesn't matter which course you're going for, these transferable skills will get you through. Your application will look much better with those. Okay, so make sure you kind of brief your recommender about all of that, or just give him a piece of paper which highlights all of these, and so that he's just better able to understand these. Alright, let's move on to the final question here, the 6th question, and that is taking an LOR from a professor from a different department. Okay, this depends. Alright, I'm going to take the course, take the case of Bachelor of Technology. So the first case, you are in the EC department, okay, and you're in the EC department, you did research with some other professor, he's from the EC department as well, alright, and now you're going for a CSE based curriculum. So that kind of depends, right? So you want to make sure that your technical skills, which can be reused in the CSE part, are made to shine a light on. So you want to make sure that, suppose you worked with Arduino, where you basically did some sort of programming and all of that stuff. So that kind of stuff is highly valuable in programming environments, even in the CSE curriculum. So you want to highlight those. Alright, let's take the second case. You are from a CSE background and you worked with an ECE professor, but now again you're going for an ECE. Well, in that case, this is a perfect thing. Okay, so if you're going for the same course and you worked with a professor from the similar department, that is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. So don't really think twice about it. Just take the LOR. Finally, your LOR should be from people who know you well, who have worked with you well enough, who know your technical as well as your managerial capabilities, who have known you for a longer period. As long as possible is better. Alright, again, sometimes there's just cases where you cannot take the LORs from people. Sometimes they refuse, sometimes they're not able to provide you with strong LORs. In that case, make sure that you have at least 5 to 10 people listed down that you think are potential recommenders. Anyway, these were all of your doubts that I wanted to clear. I wanted to make sure that you have my views on it, but again, these are not my views. I do not take credibility for them. These are all of the things that I found out by my research through extensive interviewing of people who are in the academia, and also going through the websites of a lot of application portals. So you want to make sure that you listen to this advice. Okay. Also, you can, if you want to get in touch with me and ask me some more questions on this, and I would be glad to brief you out or help you out in anything I can. So you can reach me on my Instagram page. You can also join the WhatsApp group. The links would be in the description down below. You can also join the Facebook group, and there's a whole lot of stuff. Just check the description and you will know. So anyway, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.